you know, polished a lot more on all our skills and where we were going. And we were able to take over a lot more creatively than the first album. So I think the game plan was to, you really saw us as who we were and what we wanted to get out and the music we wanted to do and the concepts for the different records that we made.
At this time, was the creative process about the same as the first album, or did
No.
we get?
No,
Oh,
we changed the creative process on the second album. Like I said, we had a lot more control creatively over that. So, you know, it was a give and take at the time, you know, where things went wrong at the end, at least with me leaving, was we were fighting over what the second single was supposed to be. Because I wanted Blowing Up the Spot. We all kind of wanted Blowing Up the Spot. And one of the members of the group, we all agreed on it. And then Hank kind of got to them. And wasn't Blowing Up the Spot. It was Roll with the Flavor. And Naughty by Nature had their, Roll with the Flavor out. And that's why we didn't want to do it. And we felt coming off the Tap the Bottle, which was such a big club record, and Blowing Up the Spot was this big, hard anthem, like hip-hop to the core bone record. And that's what we wanted to do. And then it just became about business, and that's when I left.
If we can rewind just a little bit, how did you say Terminator X and Grandmaster Flash got involved with this particular project?
Well, Hank asked Flash to do a record and for Terminator to do a record as well.
Okay, and Terminator did Tap the Bottle?
Yes, he did.
Okay, can you take me back? You guys released that in about '92. Can you take us back to the reaction when that finally took over the streets?
I remember we were out on tour with the Brand Nubians over in Germany, and we literally got back from that tour, and we were scheduled to do the Palladium in Manhattan, and that we had no idea our record hit #1 yet. And when we came off the plane and we walked into the Palladium, and there was 6,000 people in there going nuts to us, and that's when we knew we had a hit. So we had no idea what was going on because we were overseas so much and we were out of the country. By the time we got back, all the commercial radio stations were playing the record. And we didn't even know, you know. So that was a big deal.
What were your peers in the hip hop community saying? What was your friends?
I mean, they loved it. I mean, Tap the Bottle, which I'm proud of to this day, became a classic 90s hip-hop record. Like, it's in that upper echelons of the classic 90s boom-bap hip-hop, and we're a part of that.
What do you remember most about that video shoot?
Oh, just how much fun we had doing it. We were in East New York when we did that. I remember, what the hell's his name? We did the graffiti piece on the wall the night before. We were all there doing that, and just getting to shoot that video and just how much fun it was. And it was just raw. Like everything we did was just raw and real. There wasn't no, finesse on top of it and that sprinkle of, the bullshit, as I call it. Everything we did was raw and real.
Right. Were you also on the Soul Train show for that?
Yes. Yeah, we did Soul Train with Don Cornelius. We did Tap the Bottle. We performed live on that.
What are some of your best memories about being on, one of the most...
Just the fact to be on Soul Train and sitting in front of Don Cornelius and not Don Cornelius' son, but Don Cornelius. And, the fact that we were welcome to do that, and then even Showtime at the Apollo, and, we've gotten to do a lot of cool stuff that a lot of cats never got to do. And we were fortunate enough to get that. So to me, it was a big accomplishment and another step in my career in hip-hop.
Right. Like you said, you guys released the second single in '93, Roll with the Flavor. Do you think MCA did an overall good job with this project, or did they drop the ball?
I don't think they dropped the ball. I think they picked the wrong single to be the second single. I think that album could have done, Deadhead's Kids could have done 10 times better if we would have went a different route with the second single and dropped Blowing Up the Spot. And looking back on it, I still believe that.
So, take me back. You wanted another single, and this is where the tension starts. Is it evident within the group?
Yes. Yeah, we started to have a lot of tension, and like I said, we we found out we had a bad deal in place. You know, we had got a lot more money for our advance than we were told. The whole 9 yards, the typical cliche we were. And I lawyered up. I wanted the group to come with us and do it, but they didn't want to do that. So that's when I left the group. And you know, it was a big decision to walk away from something that was still on top and walk away from it. So you know, it was scary at first, and then I got WBAU with Jeff Ross, which was college radio at Hofstra, and then from there I got Hot 97.
Overall, were you pleased with that second album?
Oh yeah, second album, hell yeah. The second album was dope. Hell yeah, absolutely. I'm very proud of that album. We worked very hard on that. All of us did.
So there is rumors that there was a third album complete. Is that true?
There is a third album that has been completed. It's been unreleased. We've been back and forth, me, ATA, and Cam, about figuring out how to put it out and do it right, and maybe remaster some of the records or even remix some of the stuff. But yes, there is a third album. It's fully done. It's just never been released.
Was that during the MCA days or kind
Yeah,
of
it was
past?
back in 93, 94. Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't leave on the second album?
I left. They did. So they did that third album, and Slinky was actually the DJ on that album.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because I brought Slinky into the fold, and then when I left to start, do my solo stuff, Slinky stayed with the group.
So you leave the group around 93, 94?
Yeah, 93.
Where is Skribble at mentally? You said you ended up getting on radio. Was that immediately?
No, was definitely not immediately. I was scared. I was homeless. I was living in my truck. You know, I started trying to get odd jobs. I started working for Craig Coleman over at Big Beat Records, sleeping on his couch in his office. And I caught my break in the industry during the New Music Seminar when Stretch Armstrong couldn't show up for a show that was happening at Chippendales. And they're like, yo, Scribs, you got your records with you by any chance? And I'm like, actually, I do, because I was sleeping in my truck. All my shit was in my car. So I ended up doing that party. It was a big industry party. Went in, did all my tricks, did all the stuff that I do. And people were like, who the fuck is that? You know what I mean? And from that point on, and then that's where the industry noticed me as a solo DJ.
What's the next step at this point? What did
I started doing mixtapes and radio, and college radio, and then that's when I finally got my chance to do Hot 97. They called me up and they're like, we got a show for you, but you can't play hip hop. I was like, what? So I was like, what do you mean? Like, I couldn't wait, And it was the Saturday night dance party, and Glenn Fisher was leaving, so I had to play house music. And at the time, I hated house music. I couldn't stand house music. I was a hip hop junkie. You couldn't boom, boom, boom. Get the fuck out of here with that. So, long story short, DJ Razor came with me. It was my first night, and I had to do a live broadcast from the Palladium. And he's hand feeding me all the records. I mean, like, I was into the Bangles and the Todd Terrys and the stuff like that, but I wasn't really, schooled with real deal house music. And as time went on, they took me to the tunnel right after Sound Factory closed one night. And there was a DJ in there DJing by the name of Junior Vasquez. And Sound Factory had just closed. And they took me in there. It was about 6 a.m. And I'd never seen anything like that in my life. Like, I was like, what the fuck is this? And the energy and the fucking lights and the boom. And it was just like, whoa. And from that day forward, I wanted to be the first DJ to play hip hop and house and live in both worlds. And because of Junior Vasquez, that's how I kind of learned how to play house music. And that's when I started to bring all the drama and the looping and the effects and everything and lighting into hip hop, into my hip hop sets. And that's what started to set me apart from everybody else, because I started looking at my hip hop sets and I was playing everything, not just fucking, hip hop or this. I was playing rock. I was doing all this before all the open format shit started. And that's really what I wanted to do, and take this audience that I was and take them on this ride and this journey for hours that even if they didn't know the music, they couldn't deny it because of the way it was played and placed in the set.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Sorry, I get passionate.
Yeah, no doubt. We love passion. Take me back to the musical Hip Hop Wonderland in '96.
Oh, my God. I mean, so I was doing Jam on the Groove at the Minetta Lane Theater, and we took that around the world with Rocksteady Crew. And then they had just cleaned up 42nd Street, and the new Victory Theater was the new Disney Theater, and it was going to be the first theater to open back up on 42nd. And Bill Irwin and Mr. Wiggles from Rocksteady Crew, they came up with the idea to hit this show called Hip Hop Wonderland. So we were the first show to open up. And there was a series of shows that opened up back on Broadway at that time. And we were the first to open the new Victory Theater. And it was a limited engagement. It had Bill Irwin, who played Wimpy and Popeye, and also a bunch of kids shows. I mean, the guy's a legend, genius. And it was about Alice in Wonderland meets Wizard of Oz meets Beat Street kind of thing, wild style, And it was about this white middle-aged businessman who knew nothing about hip-hop, who falls down this, rabbit hole, which was a manhole cover, and comes into the Hip-Hop Wonderland. And I was like the Wizard of Oz. So I controlled everything that happened in Wonderland through my turntables. And this was the first time this was ever done on Broadway. And this is not like off-Broadway. This is Broadway. Wow. You know what I mean? So I became the first DJ ever to play a lead on Broadway, which was a major thing to me, which was also the first time my dad, who was dead against everything I ever did in hip-hop, was the first time he ever got to see me perform.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that experience like to have your parents or your dad there to witness something like this?
I remember doing my Peter Piper routine and then shifting it into 45 and doing everything with Peter Piper. And I remember looking, because I had a right view of him, and I just remember him crying. And it was like one of the most, it was pretty special. I get all choked up every time I talk about it, but it was pretty special.
Very nice. My man DITC is on here. It just kind of falls into the timeline, I think around '94. But he wants me to ask you about your the final episode of your MTV Raps that you DJ'd on. What do you think about that?
Again, another hip hop dream milestone that I got to be part of and be set in history for the greatest hip hop show ever, put on television. And I owe all of that to Dr. Dre, because Dre is the one that put me on Yo MTV Raps against the people's will. You know what I mean? At the time, like I started doing little episodes with him in there, and I remember the last episode he came to me, and he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna host this whole thing. You're in control. You got the," and had no idea it was gonna turn out to be this big, most legendary hip hop cipher of all time. And it's something I will never forget.
Is there anything?
Well, that's why 30 years later, when I went to Charlie Stetler and I'm like, yo, why don't we do the 30th anniversary of Yo MTV Raps? And they told me it could never be done. And I ended up with Charlie and my crew, Dan and Ronnie, and we literally in my studio putting this whole thing together with really no help from MTV, even though they gave us our blessing, thanks to them. But all the graphics, the entire show, the layout was all done through me and Charlie and my crew. And to be told by Fab Five Freddy and Ed Lover and everybody that this was the best hip hop show they've ever seen in 20 years was, again, another milestone that I've been able to give to hip hop and set my legacy for the rest of my life. It's like, I live and die by this shit. It's all I know.
Right. Is there something you could share about that last Yo MTV Raps episode that we didn't catch on camera? Something about that night? Somebody You know, I know a lot of MCs were
Nah,
coming
it
back.
was flawless. It was actually no. There's one fuck up. If you hear the record skips, but I caught it. I forgot who I almost threw off, but I almost threw off somebody. But I was so laser focused not to fuck this up. You know what I mean? You got Rakim and KRS-One and Meth and Red and EPMD, and I'm like, Special Ed, Chubb Rock. I mean, search the who's who of hip hop at that time, and I'm like, and Dre's like, it's all on you, and I'm like, I don't want to. How can I please God, don't let me fuck this up. You know what I mean? And
Right.
you know, and then Flav wouldn't shut up the whole time. He was on there just talking. It was great, but it was very special to all of us.